So are we here? Are we here?
Good morning here. Good afternoon,
everybody.
We are here.
I was having some serious issues with the Facebook Live. I'll tell you what. It was not liking me. So how's everybody?
Yeah, let me can you guys hear us out there? Give us a little yes if you can hear us. I want to make sure the audio is working here. Let me move my mic over. All right, gentlemen, how are you guys doing today?
I'm doing well, man.
Living the dream. Living the dream.
How's everything in Arizona?
Hey, good. You know, we're our weather's starting to change a little bit, so that's nice. Our evenings are getting nice, and so it's good to see the change in weather.
Quinn, you got
been quite a summer. It's been quite a year.
It's been a year, that's for sure. Quinn, you got any snow up in Maine yet?
I can't wait. It's a little warm up here right now, but the snow's coming very soon, and I want to hit those mountains, so I'm looking forward to it.
Well, the leaves haven't quite started changing in South Carolina yet, but I'm expecting that to change here quickly. So we'll see. It's feeling like fall, I can tell you.
Well, everyone, I want to thank you for joining us. If you're new to our organization, our Facebook page, this is a live broadcast that we do every Thursday at 3:30. We are the U.S. Term Limits Regional Directors, and we are working on term limiting Congress. And we have a lot of work to do, and we need your help. And we
started changing it.
Can you mute your side?
No, I got it done. That's kind of what the issue I was running into earlier. I was trying to pull it up so I can watch the comments, and it just kept the video. So I'm good now.
So everyone,
I'm glad I'm not the only one that's having that problem. I've got two different computers going just so I don't overrun myself.
You guys are really throwing me off today. You guys take over.
You know, I'll tell you what, Quinn. You know, you've got all these issues that you want to talk about today, and I think it's going to be really fun because we're going to learn something. Ron and I are actually going to learn something today. The tale of two conventions. Quinn, you got to tease that. What's that all about?
No. Dude, it's way too early to get into this. We got to talk about what we're all about and how we're going to do it and build a little suspense, man. I know you want to bail out of here, but let's build up a little suspense. Come on, you're in radio. You know how that works.
Yeah, I do know how that works. All right, let me just tease this a little bit. So the idea is that we're U.S. term limits. Let me tease it. You want me to tease it? I
want you to give everyone if I'm brand new to this is the first time I've even heard about you guys. Give me the overview in like minute and a half.
On, man. Would you just shut up and let me do it? That's what I was doing. Oh, wait. Did I really just say that? I did.
Hey, you know, this is starting to sound like the debate.
Yeah.
Well, look, I got my term limits cup. I got my term limits vest on. All right. Take it away, Clark. Go ahead.
All right, we are U.S. term limits, and what we're trying to do is impose term limits on Congress. Anybody believes that Congress is going to do it, they're not going to. So how are we going to do it? That's the big question, and that's what we get asked more than anything else. Everybody always says the same thing. Put it on the ballot and we'll vote for it. Unfortunately, you cannot do it that way. That cannot happen. States, there was a time, once upon a time, back in the late 80s and early 90s, that the states had the ability to limit the terms of their own congressional delegation. That time is gone. Thornton versus U.S. term limits, a 1995 Supreme Court decision stated that basically the states don't have the power or the authority to limit the terms of their own congressional delegation. Doesn't make sense to me, but that's what happened.
Hey, Ken. stop you real quick. Here's a question from Karen. I knew it was going to come up. So can you address that? You just on that point. Why can't this be on the ballot?
Well, I was talking about that. States used to be able to do that. States could vote on it. The legislators could limit the term of their own delegation. In a lot of states, they did put it on the ballot, and they did do just that very thing. But then a guy out of Arkansas by the name of Thornton got upset with us, and so he filed a lawsuit against us, U.S. term limits. We've been around for a long time. And he took it all the way to the United States Supreme Court. And in a decision that came down in 1995, Thornton versus U.S. term limits, us, the Supreme Court ruled that the states do not have the authority to limit the terms of their own congressional delegation. They actually, in that decision, said if you want term limits on Congress, you have to amend the Constitution. That's what the Supreme Court said. These aren't my rules. They're not Quinn's rules or Ron's rules. That's what the United States Supreme Court said. So, okay, if you have to amend the Constitution in order to limit the terms of Congress, how do you do that? Well, you go to the Constitution as written. You look at Article 5, that talks about the amendment process. In Article 5, it talks about two different ways to propose amendments. The first way is the way we're all familiar with. Congress can propose an amendment. If you get 2/3 of both chambers, both the House and the Senate, to agree on the language of an amendment, then they will pass it. And then once it's passed out of Congress, it goes to the states for ratification. It takes 3/4 of the states to ratify any amendment. So in today's terms, that means you need 38 states to ratify any amendment. Well, okay, we know that's not going to happen. Congress will never do anything to limit their own power or authority to spend. They just won't do it. So then what's the second provision in Article 5 of the Constitution? The states, whenever 3/4 of the the states, whenever 2/3 of the states make application, can call a convention for the purpose of proposing, keyword being proposing, an amendment to the Constitution. So that's where we are. We are trying to get 34 states to pass a resolution calling for a convention of the states for the purpose of proposing an amendment to limit the terms of Congress, period. End of story. Nothing else is on the table. It's a single subject, one subject, term limits. That's it. But we need 34 states to pass that application. Once they do that, Congress then calls the convention. All 50 states go. They hammer out the language of the convention. If it's passed out of that convention, then it goes to the states, just like any proposal would that comes from Congress. It goes to the states for ratification, where it takes 38 states to ratify any proposal that would come from the Convention of States.
Boy, that sounds hard.
Well, wait a second here. So you want a constitutional convention?
No, this is not a constitutional convention.
We've never had
talking about rewriting the convention. We're talking about an Article 5 convention for the purpose of making an amendment proposal. Period.
We've never had a convention of the states meet other than 1787 in Philadelphia. And you want to risk doing that again?
Well, that's not
exactly too soon.
True, Ken.
Is it too
We
soon?
had over 40 different states conventions.
What?
Oh, you bet we have. The last one was in the early 1900s. It was about water issues. States used to get together in the form of convention all the time.
What?
All the time. That's how they did business. That's how they hammered out their differences. We've just gotten away from that practice because we've gotten lazy, basically. So we are trying to reestablish that.
You mean states have met in conventions before other than Philadelphia?
Oh, you bet. They've met, I think, what is it? Almost 40 times, 37 times? I can't remember the exact number, but yeah, it's common. There is a lot of precedent for state conventions, my brother. And also they meet every year. Every single year. The Uniform Law Commission, they meet every year and they make legislative proposals. And those proposals then go back to the states and they meet every year. I can't imagine, Quinn, has it ever happened that the Uniform Law Convention met and they rewrote the Constitution? Did I miss that? Was that not on CNN?
Yeah. And in fact, not only does that body meet every year and functions just like an official convention of states. The delegates or commissioners are appointed by the state legislatures or the governor, but also every state has had conventions in their own state to draft a new constitution or propose amendments. Every state's done that.
You're telling me that the states have actually they've done their own conventions and they've written constitutions and they've written amendments to their constitutions? I can't believe that. Quinn, how many times has that happened?
Oh, okay. That's happened 233 times.
What?
Yep.
No. Really?
And 143 new constitutions have been adopted, and about 6,000 amendments have been proposed. Isn't that amazing?
Wow. How many of those ran away?
Zero.
Not enough.
So that was the great lead in by Mr. Clark, and kind of tease what we want to talk about today, because there's a lot of misinformation and outright lies, and we've been sharing a lot of these with you folks over the weeks about how a convention operates. But we have a long, rich history of these types of conventions, and there's a really unique story that I want to share today. And it really encapsulates a lot of Article 5 and amendments. And it's really pretty fascinating. So you guys want me to jump right into this now?
Yeah, man, I'm dying to hear this, Quinn. So you got to jump right in.
All right, let me, okay. Oh, you know what? I forgot to pull up our little logo. Let me put the logo up. I just feel like we're not complete without the logo. Okay.
Boy, so how'd you do that? That's pretty cool.
Magic. Woof, like that.
Magic. Jeez.
And there it is. I can actually see it on my Facebook feed now too.
All right, let me grab my screen here. I'm going to share this, and then I'm going to move us out of the way. All right, here we go. All right. The day of two conventions. Okay, so this is really fascinating history, and when I learned about it, I was like, it just blew my mind. So I want to go back in time to 1861. And gentlemen, what was about to happen? What was going on in our country in 1861? You guys remember?
1861. Oh yeah, that was some serious things going on.
Wait, you know what? I forgot. The audio doesn't work very well when I use a PDF, so I'll just cover this. All right, so the time was 1861. The country was divided. We are heading towards a civil war. And what happened was the state of Virginia called a convention, and they wanted to try to prevent the war from breaking out. And so they called a convention to propose amendments based on the slavery issue to deal with this coming crisis. At the very same time, there was another convention called, and this was by the Confederate states that had already left the Union, to draft a brand new constitution. And what's unique about this, both of these conventions were convened on the very same day. So the date is, let me pull it up here on the screen, February 4th, 1861. And now what's neat about this is that we hear the opposition claim that an Article 5 convention is a constitutional convention. Well, it's absolutely not, and we've been hashing that out for weeks now and months. What's neat about this date is this demonstrates the two types of conventions that took place at the exact same time. Montgomery, Alabama was meeting to draft a new constitution for a new government. And in Washington, D.C., 21 states had sent commissioners to propose an amendment to the U.S. Constitution to prevent the Civil War from breaking out. So there you go. On the very same day, the two different types of conventions were being convened. And what I wanted to go through is, this is a little history here. This is the Peace Convention. I'll just read that. They met in the old Willard Hotel, was the scene of the last major effort to restore the Union and prevent the Civil War at Virginia's invitation. Delegates from 21 of the then 34 states met in secret session from February 4th to the 27th, 1861, in a vain attempt to solve the differences between the North and the South. To honor those who worked for peace and unity, this memorial is erected by the Virginia Civil War Commission. So they met for 3 weeks. Now, what's Now, this was not an official Article 5 convention because, as we all know, that requires 2/3 of the states to apply for the same amendment or the same subject, and then Congress would have to call it. And I think only about 3 states had applied applications at this point to call this convention. And so they rushed it, which means because it wasn't officially in Article 5, they could not propose the amendment out to the states for ratification. And so what they did was they met for 3 weeks. They hammered it out. It was, I think, 7 amendments, all dealing on the same issue. And the former president of the United States, John Tyler, was elected president of this convention. He hand-delivered those amendments to Congress to have Congress propose it, basically vote on it by the 2/3 needed to send it out to the states. Now, unfortunately, Congress didn't propose that amendment, and the war broke out a couple months later. But before I get into that, I want to share what was going on in Alabama. So, so here is some information. I've got both of those books. If you want more information on this convention, the Old Gentleman's Convention and The Peace That Almost Was, are books you can get on Amazon. There's also a great, the author, Mark Tooley, of that bottom book there. He did a C-SPAN, or he's done a bunch of these, about an hour-long presentation on that book. So if you want to learn more about the history of that, I definitely go to YouTube and just type in Washington Peace Conference 1861 to watch that. Now, this is what I did some research in Maine. This is the actual commission from the Maine legislature to send the commissioners to that convention. And what I highlighted here, and I've used this before, this shows you, it says this: said commissioners to be subject at all times to the control of the legislature. Now, this addresses one of those crazy myths that delegates or commissioners to an Article 5 convention can do whatever they want. That's simply not true. They are bound by law, and it's these commissions, and they are acting as agents of their state legislature. And so they are under control at all times to their legislatures. And I just wanted to share that with you. Now, this is February 4th. So here is the South creates a government. They're basically creating a new country, okay? And I believe it was 7 seceding states had created this Confederate Constitution. There's a picture of it right there. And I don't know, I think that was adopted officially in March. So we had an amendment proposed out of a convention, brought to Congress, and we had a new constitution adopted in a convention. Now, there is the amendment that came from the convention. There's 7 sections to it. It's actually 7 amendments addressing different articles of the U.S. Constitution. And if you have never seen the Avalon Project, I highly recommend you go to the Avalon Project. There's a lot of great historical documents here. I do a lot of research on here, so check it out so you can read that amendment. The other thing during all of this time is, I don't want to throw Congress under the bus, because they were actually working on an amendment as well. And they ended up in February, they proposed an amendment very similar to what the states had passed in the convention. It's known as the Corwin Amendment. This passed by the 2/3 vote in both the House and the Senate. It was sent out to the states for ratification. So they were actually working on it as well. This amendment, I believe only 5 states ratified this amendment. This is one of the 6 amendments that had been proposed by Congress that was never ratified. And there it is right there. So it was HJR 80. This is on the U.S. Capitol Visitor Center. That's the amendment known as the Corwin Amendment. Okay, it was February 28th. So as you can tell, Congress was dealing with this at the same time the states were dealing with it. And I'll wrap this up by this little fascinating piece of history. Abraham Lincoln had just won the election, 1860. He headed down to Washington, D.C. In fact, he visited and met with the delegates, the commissioners, at the Willard Hotel during the convention. And on March 4th, as he was giving his inaugural address, I want to share with you some really just fascinating words from Abraham Lincoln. And he's talking about the amending provision. He goes, I'll just read this. This country with its institutions belongs to the people who inhabit it. Whenever they shall grow weary of the existing government, they can exercise their constitutional right of amending it. There's Article 5, or their revolutionary right to dismember or overthrow it. Okay, that would be basically establishing a new constitution or a new government. That would be outside of Article 5. Let's continue here. I cannot be ignorant of the fact that many worthy and patriotic citizens are desirous of having the national constitution amended. While I make no recommendation of amendments, I fully recognize the rightful authority of the people over the whole subject to be exercised in either of the modes prescribed in the instrument itself. And I should, under existing circumstances, favor rather than oppose a fair opportunity being afforded the people to act upon it. I will venture to add that to me, the convention mode seems preferable in that it allows amendments to originate with the people themselves, instead of only permitting them to take or reject propositions originated by others, not especially chosen for the purpose, and which might not be precisely such as they would wish to either accept or refuse. I understand a proposed amendment to the Constitution, which amendment, however, I have not seen has passed Congress. And so, unfortunately, the states and Congress, they were just trying to bring peace and to try to prevent the war from breaking out. And, it was both of the amendments were bad amendments. It was just a last ditch effort to try to prevent the Civil War. And unfortunately, we all know that 2 months later, the war broke out and the rest is history. But that's just a kind of neat history on this whole Article 5 amendment issue that we're working on. And so a lot happened during that period of time.
Well, it kind of makes you wonder what might have happened had Congress acted on that, or had Congress been willing or had the fortitude to propose that amendment themselves. How many lives could have been saved?
And I think the amendments were really designed so that slavery would die on the vine. It would just create it so that those southern states, that institution, that horrible institution, would just go away after probably a couple of decades. And but unfortunately, we'll never know.
No, we won't. I mean, history is what it is, and we can learn from it, or we can be subject to repeating it. So I'll tell you, you see a lot of these comments, and you see a lot of things, and the term limits convention, once we get there, we'll open the doors to a lot of other reforms as well. And I think it plays hand in hand with campaign finance, getting the money out of politics, all of that. But it starts with an issue that has 82% approval rating nationwide. The people of the country want it badly. They want it, and they want it now. And there is only one path to making that happen, and that's through Article 5 of the Constitution. That's why we do these broadcasts. That's why we need everybody involved. We need your help. We cannot get 34 states passed unless you help us. So that's what.
So where's the roadblock? What's preventing us from getting this done? I mean, anytime you have a populist idea that has over 80%, this should have been law long ago. What's keeping us from getting this done?
You want me to hit that one, or Quinn, you want to hit that one?
Yeah, I think that's important because it's certainly not the voters.
I'll tell you what, it's 82% approval rating, right? So you figure, where is the other 18%? Elected officials. Politicians will never, ever act except in their own self-interest. So what we're asking them to do, we're going to state to state to state and asking politicians to pass our resolution for a convention to potentially propose or impose term limits on Congress, right? We're circumventing Congress altogether. A lot of those politicians have dreams and aspirations of going to Congress. They want their own gravy train. They want to be somebody. It's all driven by ego and narcissism. They see Congress as their next logical step. What they fail to realize, though, is without open seat elections, they're never going to get there. They are never going to get there. And that is what we're talking about, is open seat elections. The power of incumbency is so strong that it's next to impossible to win a primary against an incumbent, and it's next to impossible to win a general election against an incumbent. They've got over a 94% re-election rate. Okay, so when you take a look at these members of your state legislature and wonder why they refuse to vote in affirmation of our resolution, most of the time it boils down to they want to be there. They want to be the next congressman. They want to be the next member of the House. They want to be the next member of the Senate, and they don't want to do anything that's going to prevent that.
So somebody wanted to know what we do with the petitions. How many does it take, and why are they important? We have people go to www.termlimits.com/petition and sign that petition. Why is that important?
Quinn, you want to take that one?
Sure. Well, it's important because, well, number one, just so you understand, it doesn't put it on the ballot. Okay, we're not trying to put this on the ballot. Why we need the petition signed is twofold. We use it to grow support. So that this is how we invite people to join us on the live broadcast. We send out calls to action. We do national emails, but we also, it's critical to get people involved and engaged in their state. And that's where Ken and I and Ron will send out calls to action, and others, others on the team will send out calls to action so that they will have their supporters contact their legislators, come to events, come to the Capitol. And then the other reason we use it is I just shared recently in a state with legislators, everyone in their district who signed the petition. And so when they see the names from their district, they know a lot of these people. And so they need to hear from you. And we share that, just the names and address. We don't share emails, anything like that. But they need to see how many people in their district support this. And so that's how we use the petition.
Most powerful leverage we have, actually. And just as in your example, I used the same one. I found one of our legislators that was waffling. And it's funny, the loudest voices are typically the minorities, but voices. And this is one where, geez, everybody uses that term. What I mean by that is less voluminous. And so the loudest voices are not necessarily the most voters. It's the least amount of voters. And politicians are influenced by that. And so when we can show 1,000 names in their district or a few hundred in their district that support term limits, it's tremendously powerful.
You get a
when I do presentations to groups, I like to share that history that we looked at today, because that was a very ugly period of time in our nation's history. Okay, very ugly. And what we should learn from that period of time is that if the states wait too long to deal with a critical issue, it can end up being very violent, like we saw with the Civil War. But what it also proves is this: our country was divided. Okay. And it proves that delegates from the states can actually meet together and work on a solution, even though that solution wasn't at that time, it wasn't a good solution. They were just trying to appease the seceding states, but they worked together over the course of 3 weeks, hammered it out, and the process worked. So I like to share that history and that convention history because the process does work. And the rules are out there. The same rules that they used at that convention have been basically adopted by the states for other conventions. And so it's just really a good background to how this whole thing functions.
Think about it this way. We've got a country that is, no exaggeration, it's on fire right now with all the rioting and the discourse, and we are truly divided as a nation. Term limits on Congress has got an 82% approval rating. What issue out there? Somebody give me any other issue out there that has that kind of approval rating. There isn't one, right? So therefore, this is an issue that can truly unite, can truly bring this country back together, and might be able to be the catalyst that allows us to solve a whole host of other problems. But we've got to take the first step, and that's getting this resolution passed in 34 states.
Well, by not seizing our state's power, we're allowing Congress and those power sources really to keep the confusion up and pumped up all the time. And so sooner or later, the states are going to get tired of it, and they're going to seize power given to them under Article 5 to force this to happen. We hear it all the time. Why isn't this done? And the reason is because your legislators are resistant to it till they hear your voice. So the most important thing you can do is contact them and say, we demand that you support Article 5 term limits for Congress. Period.
Quinn, Ron, and I spend a lot of time talking to legislators. We spend a lot of time out in the field traveling to the states. Each one of us cover, 16 states. And when we talk to a legislator inside that state, it has an effect. But when you talk to your own legislator for your district where you live, that has a major effect. We can do the best we can and we can lobby them all day long. But when you reach out to them, that is impactful. That is powerful. And we need all of you doing that right now.
You know, that's a great segue to our close. And I thought I would play our pledge video to close this out.
There you go.
How's that sound, guys? Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, everybody. I want to thank you for joining us, and just check out this video. Go to our website. We are asking everyone. We have 1 month before the election, so we need everybody asking their candidates for office to sign our pledge. Go to our website. It's under Article 5. I think it's the top thing. Pledge. There's two, one for Congress, one for state legislators. Make sure you send them the right one.
Yeah.
But you'll see the directions in this video that I'm about to play. So thanks, everybody, and we will catch you next week.
Bye-bye.